Listen, ticket talking Mazda for the biggest.
Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with a little bit of a Southern flair. My name is Daniel Hawks. That's Jarrett Roser. Today we're going to go over a little bit of an Olympics recap, and also Pelican schedule just came out. We're going to hit the highlights, lowlights, some stuff we like about it, some stuff we don't. Jarrett, how you doing today?
Same old, brother. 2 weeks till football season kicks off. We got a lot going on. Olympics wrapped up, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I feel like basketball season will actually be here sooner than we know it. But
yeah.
It's fall. Fall has sprung.
Every year I say I'm going to cut back on fantasy leads, and here I am just adding another one onto the tally. So
You said fantasy leagues?
Yeah, I did.
So I've refrained from expressing to you and that whole crew that I've like in recent weeks had a little bit of renewed fantasy football interest for the first time in years, and I've very consciously not texted any of you because I know how quickly you'll pounce on that to try and rope me in some capacity.
Okay, I've got one for you. We'll get to the stuff in a second. I've got one for you. I run this thing called a guillotine league. Guillotine league, you have 18 teams.
It's French, so use that as the transition to the Olympics in a second.
Yes. The guillotine from France. So you have 18 teams. You have a big draft with all these, 18 teams. And then the first week happens. The person that scores the lowest amount of points total over that week at the end of the week gets booted from the league, and all their players go to free agency, where then everyone left can then bid on players. So you could be in this league for 1 week, or you could be in it for all 18.
Is your sales pitch that it might not be a commitment because I can just lose the first week?
Yeah.
That's not how I'm wired, though.
Or you could keep going. It is a lot of fun. I mean, you get going once you're a couple weeks in, and then someone has your wide receiver has God forbid, a broken leg, and then it's all of a sudden you're the top team, and now you're a bottom feeder, and you gotta go bid, and yeah, that's great.
Sounds like a lot of work just to stay alive, potentially.
Oh man,
you can't
really have a fantasy itch? I just gave you I gave you like fantasy porn basically.
I know. I am constantly strapped for time, but I have it, and it's because of listening to more podcasts recently, Simmons and Rosillo, and listening to essentially re-listening to the rewatchables of movies I've seen. I'm now listening to episodes of those for the second and third and fourth time if I'm doing other stuff or whatever. And so next thing I know, the fantasy football podcast pops on after that, and it starts getting my wheels turning, thinking about guys that I would be interested in drafting.
The Ringer Fantasy Football Podcast, a huge shout out to them. I love them. They are some of the funniest guys. I don't know how much I like their fantasy advice, but I absolutely listen to it and just giggle my ass off for an hour plus every time.
Yeah, so I don't.
They just did the rewatchables, so yeah.
But I hear tidbits, at least from the beginning of episodes, every once in a while before I end up, pivoting off to something else I have to do.
Yeah, normally the last 30 minutes they just go into emails and get wildly off the rails, which is something I can endear with greatly. So
for sure,
myself with greatly. But that's enough of fantasy football. That's not what we're here to talk about. We just finished the Paris Olympics last Sunday. Closing ceremonies had Tom Cruise highlights. Tom Cruise showed up and brought the flag from Paris to LA because the Olympics are going to be in LA.
Did he make it that whole way on that little wire thing? That the extent of what I saw of the closing ceremonies was Tom Cruise someplace very high and then descending onto a stage and just being very Tom Cruisey, and that's it. So they wired him to the US.
Yeah, basically. He did a barrage of Mission Impossible type stunts going from Paris to the United States. That was the whole kind of bit.
Wow.
But yeah.
Sounds great.
It's going to be LA in 2028. Yeah, that's all we need to say about it. I didn't have that much. One thing I did want to talk about, though, is men's and women's basketball both took home the gold, both beating France in the finals. Steph Curry did Steph Curry things with that unbelievable shot over 7'12" Victor Wembanyama. Victor also put the league and the world basketball stage on notice, which I very much believe very much believe it's going to start happening sooner rather than later. And yeah, it was, both women and men's got gold. The women had a significantly bigger milestone, I think, that they passed. So Jared, I'm going to let you take over and kind of give us your take on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, they survived that buzzer beater that could have tied it, but the French player's foot was on the line, and so it ends up being a 2 instead of a 3 at the end. And I felt bad for her for that, but I wasn't sorry at all that it happened.
Yeah.
I haven't cared for the French since Zidane in the World Cup when I was a teenager, I think, at that point. And so could not be happier that it was the two French teams in the finals and that the U.S. Beat them both in the way that they did with Steph. Just, I mean, we enjoyed what we saw from him in the semifinal, and then he exploded Twitter with that shot and with just his late flurry to put that game away when it was a little bit closer out of stretch there than was, comfort for a while. So awesome for it to go that way. And then the women, we talked about it going into their 8th straight gold medal game. They've been winning gold medals since we were children every time out. And I don't feel like we talk about that a ton as much as we love to talk about as a sports world, dynasties and dominance and this sort of thing. That run is insane and should be talked about more when we talk about things like, I mean, the Celtics decades ago, or I mean, to some degree, like the old UCLA men's teams with Wooden and all these things.
Yeah.
We get so wrapped up talking about these dynasties in the major sports leagues where it might be a team that wins like 4 in 7 or 8 years or something. And like, these women have been dominating this every single Olympics. And obviously there's those 4-year gaps in between. And so that's part of it. But I feel like we talked an awful lot about Gino Auriemma's UConn teams when that was popping off at its height. And I don't know that we talk about the U.S. women's team and their dominance enough.
Yeah. And, also speaking just on that as well, Simone Biles becomes the most decorated Olympian ever. And that is another sport that we don't talk about unless it's every 4 years. But her run of dominance and also the mental health stuff that she has been through, it to be able to go through that and then come back and end up on top. I mean, that is just unbelievable. And to have both of those things going on at the same time during the same Olympics for the United States makes me super proud to be from here. And also, go those ladies. They all crushed it.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't US based, but we talked about Mondo representing LSU with the pole vault. Vernon Norwood tore it up for the men's track teams, a Louisiana guy. And so, awesome.
Let's
for him.
Give these shout outs
for him and everything that he was accomplishing as, one of the, if not the MVP of the men's track performance overall over the last couple of weeks. It's a lot of fun. And I don't watch the Olympics as much as I should, honestly. But it's so impressive to watch, or even just, to recap what is accomplished out there. And the ability to do that as consistently as the women's basketball team has done is mind-boggling to me, as though my thoughts and emotions get trapped in a bottle.
I'm always in a glass case of emotion, so I get it. I outside of the big Olympic sports of swimming, gymnastics, track, basketball, volleyball, I always get sucked into ping pong, and I get sucked into handball. Just real hard. Like we'll be looking at the schedule.
Do you feel like essentially you could, if you really focused in, that you might be able to hold your own in those? Is that
no?
Okay.
No.
I didn't know if that was part of it. If you knew, man, I cannot compete at basketball or track, but maybe ping pong. I thought you might delude yourself into that, and that was part of it.
No. I can't even delude myself into the now defunct 2028 or non-2028 sport breakdancing after that Australian woman. Like I saw that and I was like, I still
Ray,
probably couldn't do that on a
Ray
main
gun.
stage.
Yeah, I knew as soon as you started saying that it was going to breaking, that's where we were leading up to.
Yeah, yeah, which will not be coming back for the 2028 Olympics because I honestly think there might be another set of LA riots if that same kind of stuff came into LA.
It was a look again. I don't watch the Olympics as much as I should, but it even just from storylines and the way it took over, little pieces took over social media. It was a really memorable run the last few weeks. You mentioned her name is Raygun, correct? The Australian break dancing woman. I think
I
her name is just Raygun.
believe so.
But that took over so she's like Cher, but Raygun.
Yeah.
The so that took over social media. I mean, for better or worse, just from a meme standpoint, we've seen little tidbits. We talked about the French gentleman losing the pole vaulting opportunity.
The Turkish man shooting, winning a silver or
Yeah,
bronze medal and shooting with his hand in his pocket, looking like a third member from the Pulp Fiction scene.
that was a definite highlight for me. Just seeing it hit
Yeah.
the social media timelines repeatedly. We talked not on the show, but we talked about the skateboard girl that was featured on John Oliver who just wanted a duck for medaling, which is
Yeah.
adorable. So it's been a pretty incredible little run, and I really hope that girl's parents get her a duck.
Uh,
Are you looking up? Are you
I'm looking
checking
I'm looking it up real quick.
checking for updates? Did girl
Yeah.
get duck? Boy, be careful with that.
Oh, I think she did. I believe she did.
Good for her, man. As a child, we're about to go off the rails in a tangent zone in a really bad way, but I, as a child, really wanted a ferret. I had like a cousin at some point that I never really saw, but at some sort of family reunion, he had a pet ferret named Pookie, mind you, which is also a relevant nickname in 2024. And I had never been around a ferret and decided, man, that's what I want. I need to get a pet ferret. My dad shut that down swiftly. And then as I pushed, said, you know what, when you're 12, you can get a ferret. I think I was like 8 and was told that when I was 12, I get a ferret. And it was one of those things like, I'm just going to tell the kid this thing. No way he remembers it in 4 years. That's an Olympic cycle. We're going to go through another women's basketball gold medal. He's going to forget all about it and all the excitement over that. So my 12th birthday, I've been waiting the whole time for this ferret and wake up excited, most excited I've ever been for a birthday at that point, probably. And hey, time to get this ferret. When
It's
do we
ferret
get the ferret?
time. Let's go.
That's how young Jared is coming down the stairs that day, and am abruptly, dream shatteringly told, "You're not getting a ferret, man. We just didn't think you'd ever remember this for this long." And so I don't know that I've been in touch with a ferret since that reunion as an 8-year-old.
Man, I think, if you're watching this and you have
No, I don't need.
access to a ferret, what we're saying is Jarrett needs a ferret.
Oh goodness, here we go.
Oh, we
Here
are
we
so off
go.
the rails in such a beautiful way. I'm so excited.
Anyway, I just
Jarrett
really
needs
hope
a ferret.
I really
Jarrett
hope
needs
that
a
girl
ferret.
got a duck, because if not, she's gonna
She
be
did.
salty about it for years.
She's
And
did.
then okay,
There's a
good.
new duck has a home in Pennsylvania. All right. She's got it.
Good for them. Good for her and for the duck.
All right, great. So let's move on. I think we've gone so far off the rails on this.
Yeah, bring it back.
We had a whole other just another ranty bit that I think we're just gonna cut now. Pelicans. I forgot where we were going. Pelicans just came out with their schedule. NBA just came out with their schedule this week. A couple
Nice.
highlights. Both are going to open up with the Bulls on October 23rd. First time that they're really going to play a contender, and also who they got swept by in the playoffs. OKC is going to be on November 13th. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young are going to go against each other on November 11th. And then their NBA Cup games are 11:15 versus Denver, 11:19 at the Mavericks, 11:20 TU is going to be the Warriors, and then 11:29 at the Grizzlies.
Hey, cutting that other segment worked out really well. It was a really nice bird transition from duck to pels and water birds too. So good job. Good
Listen,
job.
I have foresight. Are you trying to get us off the rails again? What are you doing?
No, I don't have enough to say about water birds.
Yeah, you just laid up another ranty topic for us, because my bird law is just off the charts. Okay.
It's not governed by fact or reason in this country.
It isn't.
So I don't know what you want me to say about the Pels schedule.
What did you look at? Did you see any highlights? Did you see anything that you're excited for them to play or not play? Or
I don't get into a ton of schedule stuff. I do like that they start, respectfully to your hometown of the last 10 years, Chicago Bulls. I really like that they start with the mediocre Chicago Bulls and then back-to-back games with the Trailblazers, who are not good, and then back-to-back games with the Warriors, who I think will be better than people expect them to be, but have a lot of new faces and may still be learning to play together in a lot of ways that early. And so I'm hoping you kind of start out with some nice momentum, 4-1 maybe, if not better, maybe, really come out hot. I guess I'm kind of looking at it from a sandwich standpoint. I like the opportunity to start at the end. There's always some games that are going to be potential pivotal playoff seeding type games. So you have some of those, but there's also a couple of Detroit games late, a Brooklyn game late, a Charlotte game late, and most of those teams, if not all those teams, should be bad. And so the opportunity to kind of sprinkle some should be easily winnable games in between some of those potential playoff positioning games. I like that. I know you told me about all the back-to-backs. That concerns me a little bit for a team that has been as troubled with injury dynamics for years as anyone. And so that's something to keep an eye on. I wouldn't be opposed to, being pretty precautious in those situations in some cases.
I believe it was, and I could be wrong. I'll fact check myself here in a second, but I think it is. There are 5 playoff teams that are tied for the most back-to-back. So it is a couple other of those good teams, and I believe the Nuggets were in there as well, and the Timberwolves were in that. So we do have a couple of those contenders in the West that are also going to have that kind of back-to-back schedule. That's just kind of the way the card gets drawn sometimes. NBA schedule gods don't favor us apparently, but we'll see. And if they do kind of get over that injury hump, and if we can kind of keep everyone intact this year, lucky to say, I know it is a smaller lineup, but there is a lot of depth with this team. So maybe that can keep some legs fresh, and on those back-to-backs, don't have to lean on Zion or BI as much. Maybe it's just a CJ and a DeJounte game, something like that. I still think us having at times possibly the 4 best players on the court is going to work out to our advantage. I know that's going to be a lot. They're going to have to learn to work together, and a lot of people are going to have to give and take from what their normal role is, but that's not to say that can't happen. I guess I'm going to be an eternal optimist on that. Everyone has kind of said what this fit's going to be like if you're going to keep around Brandon Ingram. But I think having BI that long with Zion, DeJounte, and CJ, all very capable of handling the point guard slot at certain points during the game. And then all of them with that defensive tenacity that I think maybe CJ doesn't have the tenacity, but he's an older vet who can be there. I think we could be a really good defensive team. I think we can be a really good scoring team, and put those things together. We can make a run.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how some of the rotation pieces fall into place and as much as I say it would be great to come out of the gates hot and be a 4-1 or 5-0 team heading into November, I think we talked recently about there's times where I think the relative youth as an NBA fan base of the New Orleans Pels fan base has shown in one of those ways being how quickly frustrated the fan base will get over a down stretch at some point in December or January. And ultimately, it's a long season. And so, regardless of how those first 5 games go, as much as you'd like to start hot, it's a long season. The Pels will still be learning themselves for a
and
long. So,
and regardless what it is, it's one home game and 4 straight road games, 4 straight
yeah,
West Coast road
fair.
games. That's then we get a nice little home stretch in there. But just because, you know, the Trailblazers aren't supposed to be great, you see a team 2 nights back to back, there's a opportunity for an NBA team to take advantage of it, you know?
Yeah,
Especially,
those are areas. Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, but the areas where you have the Portland games back to back, the Washington games back to back, and stuff like that, that's an area where I want to see a level of maturity from the Pelicans
For
to
sure. Absolutely.
take care of those bottom dwelling. There's a handful of teams that you know are going to be in the worst teams in the league, and even though there are challenges of playing them back to back nights or a Friday, Sunday, or whatever it may be, some of those weekend series essentially. Those series against the bad teams take care of those. And as we get into November, I think once you get through the first few weeks, I look at this stretch early November where you have a home game against Cleveland, a trip to Orlando, and then you've got a Brooklyn game in there, a trip to OKC, and then home games against Denver, LA, and then at Dallas, at Cleveland. That's where I think that's where I'll probably start to more aggressively tune into, okay, how is this taking shape, particularly against teams that have notable bigs? How are the Pels handling some of those matchups at this point?
And, you know, talk about those Portland games, maybe once the staff and, you know, the front office, they get to see one of the 12 centers that Portland has. Maybe there's something in there that we see, and then we just take someone home with us. That'd be great. You know, just like, hey, come back to New Orleans.
Treating the weekend in Portland as like a wife swap situation, but for like fringe all-star talent guys.
Hey, Robert Williams III, what do you think? You want to
come on back to Louisiana?
You know, we love that motor. We got a steamboat right in the Mississippi. No one calls it that. I hated myself a little as soon as I said it.
Well, everything that's happening at this point is awful. We're talking about like a key party of NBA roster situations, and so there was nowhere to go. But
I thought you were going to say we were talking about a key party of NBA roster situations, looking more like a tea party of NBA roster situation.
No, I was not going to say that.
We have gone 1000% off the rails. Football needs to come back.
Hey, we got a lot of it to talk about the next couple weeks.
We do. So let's get out of here. But before we do, I want to preview what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to do a couple different things that are going to be super fun. We're going to be going over the LSU and the Saints schedule. I know that just that sentence, if you read it, doesn't sound super fun, but that's the kind of ish I live for. So I think it's going to be a great episode. And then, Jared, what is another special episode that we've got coming out next week?
Yeah, I think we'll just have an opportunity to talk more about Waterbirds because we'll be looking at the college football playoff outlook and drafting some teams. We'll each draft a few teams and see how it racks up during the extent of the year. And the Oregon Ducks would be high on my wish list of that to potentially make the playoffs.
I'm down for us to have a little bet going on with the teams that we draft. So if anyone listening to this, let's hear from you. What's something that we should bet? And, you know, if we don't like it, we're just not going to use it. But if it's a great idea, we'll absolutely integrate it here into this. So let us know what you think. And you can do that by commenting on this video down below. Give us a like and a share. Also find us on Instagram. It is PODnas_LA. and then all of the Louisiana versus all y'all channels, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or here on YouTube. That's it for me. Jared, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, just as always, keep up with the Louisiana versus all y'all channel. A lot hitting right now. This week alone was out with the LSU Tigers, Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and Tulane Green Wave, and have a lot of high school preview stuff hitting the channel upcoming as well.
Hey, and if you have made it this far, we love that. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see you. Until next time, PODnas out.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the